It's so hard sometimes to say no. It's hard sometimes to speak up, to say what it is that you feel about a situation or the way that you think things should go because you want people to like you and you don't want to cause conflict in a relationship. But at the same time, it's not very satisfying, is it? And you feel like you're just being used in a relationship, that you don't matter, that you're not being valued, you're not being seen. Well, today we are going to look at what is going on when you are a people pleaser. And I am going to help you to learn what it is that is holding you back from speaking your mind and from speaking up in relationships so that you can transform yourself to become empowered to have an equal say in what is going on and talk about how you feel so you can feel valued in your relationships. If you are new here, I hope that you will say hi and tell me a little bit about yourself. I am Tanya Cordenbrock, and I am the person behind arenewedlife.com. Now, for years, I was a licensed therapist, but now I am an online emotions coach where I have my premier Mastering Emotions program. I hope that you will stay tuned till the end here because I do have a free resource that I want to tell you about that's really going to help you with this pattern that you have of being a people pleaser. Let's begin by looking at why you are a people pleaser. And I've found there's one main reason as I've worked with women, and that is fear. Maybe you already knew that. Maybe you already knew that you were afraid and that's why you don't speak up and why you just go along with what others want you to do. But there are actually three types of fear that you need to be aware of. The first one is a fear that when you say something to someone when you disagree with them or you've been hurt and you want to tell them about it, that those so-called negative emotions landing on them is going to be too much for them. They won't be able to handle it and it will just crush them. And you don't want to do that to them. And so you have this fear that your expression of how you feel will be too much for them. They won't be able to handle it. Then the second fear is that you will get hurt. And if you you disagree with them or you tell them how you are feeling, how you see it differently than they do, then they will get angry and who knows how they will respond. Perhaps in some really cutting words that are just going to go deep into your heart and make it even worse. Or maybe they will even blow up and hit you possibly. And you don't want that to happen for sure. Now, the third fear is a fear of rejection. And I would say actually the first two fears kind of go into this also. But the fear that the other person they won't like what you have said, and because you're not in agreement with them, that they won't be happy with you, they won't want you around anymore. Or perhaps they will think that you are selfish, that you're immature, that you are stupid, and so they don't want anything to do with you anymore. Now, while it is absolutely normal to be afraid of rejection, to be afraid of being hurt, to be afraid to hurt the ones that you love. This is all very normal, but for some reason in some people, now I know what the reason is, but this fear gets magnified and it becomes so strong that it holds you hostage, blocks you from being able to speak up, to say what it is of how you feel and what it is that you think. So how did this happen in you? How did it develop? Because you weren't born that way, but instead you learned it. You learned it from experience, from very painful events that have occurred in your life. And those events could have been, for instance, that fear of that your words might be too powerful for someone and might harm them. Perhaps in your childhood, your mother or a brother were just really sensitive, really emotional, and the family walked on eggshells around this person because they didn't want to hurt them. They didn't know if they were going to go into a deep dive into depression, maybe even become suicidal. Or perhaps you had someone in your past who did commit suicide, and it seemed like this was due to upsets in a relationship. So it would make sense then that you would take from these events that, oh, my words are so powerful and have the so powerful that they could hurt someone severely, possibly even kill them. Now, if you have the fear of being hurt yourself, then most likely you have experience with perhaps a parent who was quite volatile with their emotions, and if they were upset, possibly even for the slightest event, slightest thing that could happen, that maybe you weren't even aware that this was going to be offensive, but this parent blew into a rage. Perhaps it was your dad, or it could have been your mom. This would teach you then that you have to be very, very careful about what you say and what you do, because it could really make things explosive. The other person could blow up and be just very, very hurtful toward you with their words, or they could punch a wall, they could throw things, they may even be violent toward you if they don't like what you have said. And that third fear of rejection, that can sometimes come from a relationship with someone significant in your life who had a tendency to just cut you off. If they didn't like what was going on, they possibly for some reason couldn't handle it, or whatever was going on within them, they would give you the silent treatment. And this is, while it seems like that's not such a big deal, it actually is very, very hurtful and very harmful to a relationship and very harmful to a child. So if this was done to you, then it is not surprising that this has taught you that if you say something that the other person doesn't like, then they can most definitely reject you. They will just cut you off from their life and not want to have anything more to do with you. Now, let's look at how to stop people pleasing. So people pleasing comes from having this fear within you, and there are three main types of fear. Fear that your words will harm the other person, that they won't be able to handle it. Fear that they will blow up and possibly hurt you. And then fear of being cut off from the relationship or being rejected. And this forms within you from very painful events from your background, and most specifically from your childhood, where there was someone in the family who was fragile, and everyone walked on eggshells around this protected this person so that they wouldn't be hurt and wouldn't go into a deep dive into depression, for instance, or walked on eggshells around someone who was very volatile, and you never knew when they were going to blow up and have harsh words, hurtful words, or attack by tearing things up in the household or by hitting someone. And then that fear of rejection formed from having someone who would cut you off if they were unhappy with you. Now, what these really deep pains do to you, especially as a child, is they create response patterns. And these are ways of responding to whenever you want to, to events that happen. And so, like when you want to speak up, but you can't, it's because you have this response pattern that has developed within you. And this is literally pathways within your brain from neural networks that have to do with your emotions, that fear, with the lies that come with that fear, and then also what happens in your body and how you respond out of that, such as by just zipping your mouth or withdrawing and sinking down into yourself and not saying anything about how you feel or how you think. So if you are going to change and stop being a people pleaser, the first thing that will really help with this is to realize how this developed within you. And because when you do that, then you can also gain an awareness of why it makes sense that you would believe these lies, and recognize that they are lies, that your words are going to crush someone else, that they just will not be able to handle it, or that your disagreement with someone is definitely going to cause them to blow up and to hurt you. Or that if you speak your mind, then definitely the other person is going to think that you're stupid, or that you're selfish, that you're immature, and that they no longer want to be around you. And if you're going to disagree with them, then they're going to cut you off. These are the part of that response pattern and those beliefs that have developed within you. Now, definitely, this can happen with some people, but it doesn't happen with everyone. And you have to recognize that this is part of that fear that is within you, that's been placed there for good reason. But if you approach every single person in your life with these beliefs, then you will continue to stay in that place of not being able to speak your mind, of not being able to speak up about how you feel, about what it is that you need from the relationship. And then your relationships will continue to be very unsatisfying, and you will feel like, where's the me in this relationship? It's all about you. Yet this is because you are in this response pattern of being this people pleaser and not speaking up. So becoming aware of how this developed within you will be helpful, and then recognizing those lies will also help you. And I have a video that I've done on the roles that you play within a dysfunctional family. Check that out, because that will help you to understand also why you respond the way that you do. And as I mentioned earlier, I do have a free resource for you. And this is my guide for overcoming fear and anxiety. And this will help you to be able to recognize what it is that's going on inside of you when you're feeling that fear and take some steps to be able to change that pattern. Okay, well, that's it for today, and thank you for joining me. What I'm kind of curious about at this time, if you would let me know, is first of all, do you recognize those three fears? Which one is most powerful for you? And then also, how are you seeing that those developed within you? What kind of events from your past have helped to form those beliefs and that response pattern? Well, that's it for today. See you next time.